Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Daily Roundup on this, a Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Folks, do you know that today is National Animal Crackers Day? And my friend, she loves animal crackers. She tries to limit herself to 3 animal crackers per day, but sometimes she cheetahs. See what I did there? She is the she-devil with a spatula. She is the Khaleesi of Greater Coburg area. She is Tamara Ugolini, and live and in person, I might add. How you doing there, Tamara?
How exciting, isn't it?
It is so exciting. You're not going to pass out today or anything, right?
No passing out, no internet disturbances today, and
that's an in-joke.
Leave you by yourself to manage. Oh my goodness, I'm well today. How are you, David?
Fantastic. How was the traffic on the 401 coming in?
It wasn't too bad. I got to bypass most of it this morning.
Oh, really?
So leave just a little bit later. You know, there's always some congestion, but it wasn't terrible. On the way home, I dread that trek back home.
Yeah, that's true. But you can always take the 407. And, I think most people, Tamara, they have a love-hate relationship in the GTA with the 407.
Yeah.
We love how it moves you, but we hate how expensive it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you a little story about that. We once went on a family trip down to Ohio, and there was a toll road there. And we drove for kilometers and I think it was over 70 kilometers. And I thought, when we get to the toll booth, because I'm thinking of 407 prices. By the way, the 407 is owned by a Spanish conglomerate. How did that happen? But I'm thinking this is going to be like at least $100. And we get to the toll booth and the lady says, that'll be $3.42.
Yep.
Boy, are we ripped off in this country, right? But
in more ways than one, right? That's just a small little piece of the pie there. But yeah, once I drove down to Florida, and that's going back probably about 15 years, and similar, like $1.30 to drive on the toll roads. Yeah.
Oh man, it is the great Canadian ripoff. We just get so screwed. You know, even when the Canadian dollar was higher than the American dollar, remember you'd go to a bookstore and the American price, say for a hardcover book, $32, in Canada, $40. Unbelievable. But enough of us whining about the cost of living. Tamara, what is it that we are hoping to do here today?
Yeah, well, we're hoping to get through a bunch of news pieces. So if you're just joining us from home, this is our daily Roundup live stream where we join you live from the Rebel headquarters. And so we have a bunch of news items to get through today. But first and foremost, if you're joining us on certain platforms, you can't engage with us directly, unfortunately. So YouTube is one of the most censorious online streaming platforms out there, but we do have a massive following there. So we want to continue reaching those viewers. And there are certain topics. I don't think we'll get into any nitty gritty today, but if we do, we'll cut our YouTube stream and we'll head on over to another platform. So that's Rumble, Getter, Odyssey, and Twitter. And then on some of those platforms, you can engage with us directly by giving us a super chat or a hyper chat, and donations of $5 or more, we will read on screen and provide commentary or feedback, or maybe you can send us your tips or opinions. So it's a nice way for us to get your feedback and engage with our viewers at home, and for you to support our independent journalism, because as we see more and more, the state-backed, government-funded media really has their work cut out for them lately, especially as Elon Musk moves to label these media outlets on his social media platform, Twitter, as state-funded or government-funded sources of news. And I guess that's our first story then.
You know, it's unbelievable, Tamara. I mean, the idea that the CBC head honchos and their useful idiots in Parliament are acting with just shock that there is truth in advertising to the CBC label, that in fact it is government-funded media. And that is what it is. I mean, they have, since the inception of the CBC, going back more than half a century ago, they have always been government-funded. And the idea that there's truth in advertising about where they're getting their money. Now, the thing is, I believe CBC, like NPR, National Public Radio in the States last week, they have paused going on Twitter. They are so offended by this little label. You know what? The devil is in the details, as always, folks, because, Tamara, I'm going to tell you something. That is going to be a temporary pause. They will be back on Twitter. And you know why? Blackface is going to say, listen, you sons of bitches, I've paid billions of dollars to prop you up since I took office in 2015. I want my propaganda to get out there to the 2 billion plus eyeballs, whatever the Twitter audience is. You're going to damn well go back on Twitter. That's my feeling. It's just a pause, as in a temporary pause, because Blackface isn't going to put up with this kind of insubordination from his top-trained seal in the media, Tamara.
And I think we have a clip of that, but before we get to it, I want to show Elon Musk, so that's the CEO of Twitter, has issued a tweet to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the CBC, our government-funded state broadcaster. They wanted clarification, I guess, because they are upset that this new label has been put on their Twitter account. And so Musk is really trolling them, in my opinion. Like, he's acting, he's really trolling their offendedness, offense at simply being labeled accurately. So he tweets out here that the CBC said that they're less than 70% government funded.
Oh!
So we corrected the label. And so he put there, you can see it on screen, 69% government funded media. Just a massive troll of the CBC.
Tamara, I mean, people, our haters, our enemies, they mock us whenever we're crowdfunding a campaign. They will say, oh, look at Rebel News. Look at them begging again, right?
Yep.
But you know what? And I know the big boss man, Ezra Levant, feels the same way. This is the most honest way of funding, I think. We're not taking a penny out of your bank account every 2 weeks. It's almost like, remember 1994, folks, Rogers negative option billing? You had to tell them to stop giving you the channels you didn't want. I mean, it's even worse than that, because even if you hate CBC, Global, CTV, it doesn't matter. You're still going to pay for it.
Yep.
Whereas we ask for a voluntary donation, and if you don't give us money, you are still getting our content, the vast majority of which is behind our paywall. So here's the thing, Tamara. Why doesn't the CBC, why don't their reporters like Rosemary Barton on down get off their fat ricotta cheese candy asses and start soliciting for money like PBS does in the US, by the way? Oh, no. They're above that. They're too important. So here's plan B. We make CBC a pay-per-view service. So let's say $10 a month, $10. If what they say is so true, that CBC is the glue that holds the Confederation together, that CBC is the most trusted news source, surely $10 a month, $120 per year per household, that would more than pay for the billion plus they get. But they won't do that, Tamara, because what percentage of Canadians do you think would even volunteer $10 a month for their content?
Oh, gosh, I have no idea what I would even put that number as. I mean, you would probably see the CBC tank pretty quickly at that rate. When your government, when your tax dollars aren't just automatically going to funding a bunch of these government cheerleaders, then I think the vast majority of Canadians, especially during the trucker convoy, really saw the bias of the media. If they hadn't already been in that space where they were questioning and doubting and looking at their reporting and going, this doesn't seem like news gathering anymore. This is more reminiscent of propaganda and of state-backed propaganda. And, just personally, my husband's grandmother, I think she's about 85 now, has all the comorbidities you could think of for COVID. And she was thankfully is still living independently. But throughout the lockdowns and the forced isolation, we were still able to visit her, thank goodness. But she was stuck inside in front of her TV all day, and even she was going, this is propaganda. What are they talking about? Why are they just incessantly pushing this fear and telling us to cower and stay inside? And like I said, she's in her 80s, has tons of comorbidities, and she's going, I just want to go to Tim Hortons and have coffee with my friends and play cards and go dancing. And we're meant to be doing all of these things to protect Grandma. And Grandma's going, what is this propaganda coming from the television?
Your grandmother is obviously a very intelligent and media-savvy lady, Tamara. And that's the thing, too, that really grinds my gears when it comes to the CBC. They are so far left in their bias. And I'm not even asking them to be far right. How about just play it down the middle? How about that as a concept? No, they can't resist. And they've been trapped over and over again with how impartial they are.
Well, that's what that tweet here, their response to Musk was that our journalism is impartial and independent. Look at this. To suggest otherwise is untrue. That is why we are pausing our activities on Twitter.
And then in French, of course. Yeah, because I saw the Bloc Québécois and the NDP saying that Pierre Poilievre defunding the CBC is attack on the French somehow, as if there's no private French media in Canada. What a joke. But you know what? This is where CBC has shot themselves in the foot, Tamara, with that statement. If you really think you are impartial and you are an unbiased source of journalism, then prove it by going on the Twitter platform. Right now, it's like they've got something to hide. If you really think you are not biased, put it out there for the Twitter audience and let them determine. And by the way, this is another thing. I can't help but get this off my chest. With our journalism, when we put a story up, Tamara, we have comments that are open. Yes. And it's the Wild West. And most of them actually love what we're doing, but we have our haters and we have our doubters, and they say all kinds of rubbish out there. But we can take it. We've got thick skin. How many times have you gone on to a CBC story and you get to the bottom and it says comments have been disabled for this story? So think about that. They want our money. They depend on our money, but they want to hear what you have to say, especially if it's some story on trans activism where the normal people are going to denounce it. No. Shut up, know your role, and just pay your taxes so we can continue to publicize our propaganda. Mm-hmm. It's just shameful.
Well, and then you have, I guess she's now an independent TikTok star, Rachel Gilmore, who is basically soliciting herself to the CBC.
Oh boy, there's a punchline there somewhere, folks, but I dare not say it. Keep going.
We're going to show you this clip where leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, called the CBC News propaganda. Called it for what it is, a spade's a spade. And you have Rachel Gilmore taking to her illustrious TikTok platform to explain to Canadians why this is dangerous, I guess.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre just called CBC News, which is one of the biggest news outlets in Canada, propaganda, sadly, which is an outright lie. And he said it after Elon Musk labeled CBC News government-funded media, despite the fact that it's a crown corporation, arm's length from government, and completely editorially independent. Poilievre then cited Elon Musk's label as evidence that CBC is, quote, not news. And he fundraised off of it. Attacking the institutions that hold power to account just because you don't like them is insanely irresponsible. Without reliable news that has editorial standards like CBC, politicians go unchecked. And that's bad for democracy. I'm honestly gobsmacked that any politician from any party would go this far. So I suppose I shouldn't be surprised, since Poilievre released an entire press release about me just because I asked him questions he didn't like. What do you think of all this?
Okay, since you're asking, Rachel, I'll give you some advice. Since you're obviously trolling for a job at CBC ever since Global threw you over the mast with your previous job, how about this? Can we tone down the vocal fry and the Valley Girl accent? It's really annoying, but I guess, she's trying to come across more professional, Tamara. She's not putting her cleavage on display for a change. Some call it TikTok. I think with Rachel Gilmore, it's tit talk. But I digress. But that's my theory. She's standing up for the mother corp because this gal needs a job. I don't think you get paid by TikTok to do these videos. I don't know how she monetizes these videos. And by the way, I'm not happy she lost her job. I don't cheer that on. I'm not about cancel culture, even though I bet you anything, if any of us at Rebel News lost our jobs, or if Rebel News were to disappear, Rachel Gilmore would be doing cartwheels. But I think that's the unspoken strategy of that video. CBC is big. They got bureaus all over the country. They're a sacred cow. Well, at least until Pierre Poilievre comes in, and we'll see. This is about her going to the CBC poobahs and saying, look how I've gone to bat for you. What do you think? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. And she says that they're Canada's largest media organization, but that's because Canadians have no choice. Our tax dollars go to funding them from the government that we pay our taxes to. And so I think, like you mentioned earlier, if there was a choice there and there was, a $10 monthly fee or what have you, then we would see how quickly the CBC would become even more irrelevant than they already are now.
And it's worse than you think, Tamara, because I know the landscape has recently changed where private broadcasters are also sucking from the government teat in terms of taxpayer-funded bailouts. It's over $600 million and going up. But traditionally, just imagine you and I were running our own private radio station or TV station. We are paying taxes to fund the CBC. In other words, we are paying our money, our revenue is going to propping up our competitor. That is egregious. That is not a level playing field.
Right. That's state-funded,
Yep.
state-backed media. And I could see if they were at least engaging in some form of neutrality or not being biased. And I want to go back to the National Citizens Inquiry. I think it was day 2 of the Toronto hearings, where former CBC journalist Rodney Palmer gave, I think it was just over an hour testimony about how the CBC throughout 2020, 2021, and arguably continues to this day, how they disregarded news gathering and following the facts and instead engaged in blatant propaganda. Yeah, there we have the Western Standard did a report on it, and I think I've included a couple little clips in a few of my reports on the NCI as well. But his testimony was compelling, thorough, well-researched, presented articles, presented facts, contrasted like photographs in their own articles that contradicted what they were saying, in particular about ivermectin at the time. And he says in there as well, I forget which journalist it was, but there are several journalists who left the mainstream media because their stories kept being killed editorially because it didn't uphold that safe and effective line. It didn't toe that big pharma marketing slogan. And so their stories kept being killed, and they're going, well, this isn't unbiased and neutral, and we want to continue to follow the facts, and we can't ethically keep up with this narrative. So they left the media entirely. So
Good
I would
for
urge
him coming
anyone.
forward.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
he's now retired, but he's a very esteemed journalist, did tons of foreign missions, has obviously a lot of experience in the field. And so he really was very articulate and in his testimony, and presented facts. Like there was none of this rhetoric and inflammatory statements. He simply laid it out factually. So for anyone who's doubting what we're saying about the mainstream media engaging in propaganda instead of news gathering, I would highly recommend you go and watch his full testimony. Like I said, it's about an hour. And I think the NCI on their Rumble channel even just cut his segment in particular. But regardless, we can contrast that with what Prime Minister Trudeau has said about, for instance, us at Rebel News versus the mainstream media. And so we have a little montage that we've put together here where Trudeau says that the media is there to ask him the tough questions. I don't know about you, but I haven't been seeing any tough questions until more recently with the Chinese interference and meddling in our democracy. And of course, then any criticism that Trudeau faces, it's always, well, that undermines our democracy and that depletes our social cohesion, as though his own rhetoric isn't responsible for doing all of that anyway. So let's just share this little montage with you. Highlighting the hypocrisy of our beloved, esteemed leader.
The media has an extraordinarily important role to play in our democracy. In any democracy.
The only reason that I'm allowed to ask you this question is because today the federal court ruled that the government doesn't have the right to determine who is or is not a journalist.
The reality is, organizations like yours that continue to spread misinformation and disinformation, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country. And I think Canadians, but they're also there to ask really tough questions, and not just so they can expose or challenge people in power, which is extraordinarily important, but so that citizens can feel reassured that as you go through your daily lives, you've got a professional cadre of journalists there holding us to account on everything they do.
Allez-vous leur enlever leurs privilèges reliés au passeport vaccinal? Et aurez-vous l'obligeance de répondre à ma question en tant que Premier ministre, ou allez-vous encore diaboliser mon média?
J'ai partagé ma perspective sur ton organisation hier soir. J'ai plus rien à dire.
That the tremendous power a government has is not being abused. That's what is so important in journalism.
Yeah, and I think we have a quick clip from the National Citizens Inquiry where Rodney Palmer himself actually applauds Alexa for her journalism.
No kidding.
On certain
Wow.
things. So in particular here, the Freedom Convoy, when they discovered one lone Nazi flag and some sort of trucker Confederate flag. So I think we have the clip that we can just play where he calls Alexa one of Canada's best journalists in this day and age.
Rebel News, which is an alternative news, which was marginal because it's largely a conservative mouthpiece, I guess you would call it, trying to get rid of Trudeau and put a conservative government in. That's kind of their position. But during the last 3 years, there's been more truth on Rebel News than I've seen on any other media in all of Canada. And I say that as an experienced journalist. Their intrepid reporter, Alexa Lavoie, who I think is one of the greatest investigative reporters in Canada today, noticed that these 3 pictures were taken by 3 different people. One of them by David Chan, a longtime Liberal photographer. One of them by Andrew Mead, a known Trudeau photographer. And another by Randy Boswell, who's a reporter, a writer, I guess. But he writes a lot using about misinformation, anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists. This is his. So how did they all get in the exact same place? She noticed that the Peace Tower is in the same aspect ratio, the same distance, depth as in all of the 3 pictures. All of 3 of these people were in the exact same spot when that guy unfurled that flag. She was curious about that. These 2 pictures were the only ones seen of the Nazi flag, and the reason there's still pictures is because it wasn't unfurled long enough for any of the 10,000 cameras in the place to see it and film it. She went to the first one on the left, and she found that it's a little parquet setting. She found the setting, and she noticed that it was nowhere near the protest. It was down on a little walkway. So this entire thing with all these flags was staged.
There's an example of actual news gathering, real journalism. And again, Rodney's full testimony there contrasts that with the propaganda being espoused by the CBC.
Well, I want to personally thank Mr. Palmer for going to bat for Alexa Lavoie. And those were fantastic points about these photos. I think that might be our country's version of the Zapruder film of the Kennedy assassination, that when you start looking into the details and the nitty-gritty, some things are not making sense. And, I got to tell you, you saw, folks, how Alexa was disrespected by the Prime Minister at the parliamentary debates of 2021, as well as my colleague Tamara here. I got to say, Tamara, I think that's a win because unlike me, when I was standing on a street corner in Toronto in December of 2021, you and Alexa, thank God, were not physically assaulted for absolutely no reason at all by Justin Trudeau's Royal Canadian Mounted Henchmen. That's Banana Republic garbage. Well, we don't grow bananas here in Canada. Let's call it Maple Syrup Republic. But Lincoln Jay and I were just standing there. And the hard question we were going to ask Mr. Trudeau, folks, was this. At the time that happened, Christmas was around the corner, and Justin Trudeau was saying to Canadians, don't get together with family and friends at Christmas time. It's too dangerous in terms of the coronavirus. But at a Toronto restaurant, I believe it was a $1,600 a plate fundraiser, he had people packed in like sardines, and I simply wanted to ask him about the double standard. Why is it that Canadians can't get together with their friends and family at Christmas time, but you can have a soiree, a fundraising soiree? And I see our producer, Efren, has already found the video. And ace cameraman Lincoln Jay and I were just waiting for the motorcade. We were trying to figure out which SUV. By the way, 8-cylinder fossil fuel burning SUV, and they never turn the engine off, folks. So much for climate change and all that rubbish. But they know who we are. You can see my mic flash. And maybe we should just roll a few seconds of that, because there you go. They haven't even identified themselves. These are what I found out later, his RCMP goons. And for standing on a corner on public land you get beaten up. I mean, my hands were cut up. I think I had a concussion. My watch was destroyed. And just for hoping to yell a question at him, because all I was expecting, Tamara, was him to do that smug smile and wave or say no comment. But instead, I got the bonus plan. This guy is a thug, all right? And for him to say he's going to bat for independent press and that he's not afraid of tough questions, nothing could be further from the truth.
Completely agree. We have a super chat here that I want to mention before we go to an ad break.
Okay.
And it comes from Cool Beans 89. They give $5. Thank you very much. They say, thanks, David, for wearing the transgender colors on your tie.
Holy moly. Well, you know what? I'm going to throw the boss under the bus here. I forgot my tie, so I grabbed something off of Ezra's coat rack. And holy mackerel, you're right, the baby blue, the pink, but we have a darker blue. There really should be white if you want to do the whole trans thing. But yeah, this, trust me, folks, this is not subliminal messaging going on.
That's a really good point. Actually, I said we were going to go to an ad break, but before we do that, I wanted to show you NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has a response to the CBC debacle. Let's just play this quickly.
And then what do you make of, I guess, Pierre Poilievre and Elon Musk laughing about 69 jokes when it, relates to the CBC?
Yeah, I think it really exposes who Pierre Poilievre is. This is someone at a time when people are upset and angry about the fact that they can't afford their groceries. One of the most common talked about issues, the issue that people everywhere I go across the country are talking about is how it's hard to afford groceries. Anytime I'm in a grocery store, people come up and say, hey, like, we're really angry and frustrated. Like, thanks for giving us some voice. And we're targeting who's at fault here, the greed of these CEOs that are using inflation as cover to pay for more or to make more profit while people can't afford their groceries. That's what I'm hearing about. And what is Pierre Poilievre doing? He's spending his time attacking journalists who ask hard questions. Like, how is that someone that can be prime minister? They're afraid of a tough question. They attack journalists. Like, what leader, what strong leader spends time attacking journalists? Why aren't you attacking the powerful billionaires that are exploiting people? That's what people are telling me to do. And so it really shows, the kind of character of someone, that they're going to attack someone that's asking them a tough question. And that they're going to go to a billionaire tech giant for help. He went whining to a billionaire tech giant for help to attack journalists. I mean, that's pretty embarrassing if you think about it.
Yeah, Tamara, do you think for a second Jagmeet Singh is going into a supermarket to buy his own groceries? I've seen him on the streets of Ottawa. He is surrounded by security guards. You can't get anywhere near him. So the idea of him going to a supermarket, and the idea that somebody comes up to him to discuss politics as opposed to, excuse me, sir, do you know where the Granny Smith apples are? Give me a break. And also, if inflation is a concern, we take CBC off the docket. There's $1.4 billion in savings. And Jagmeet Singh, unlike Pierre Poilievre, supports the carbon tax. Why the hell do you think groceries are going up so high? Farmers' costs are up, transportation costs are up, and this is a completely unnecessary virtue signaling woke tax. But he supports that. I mean, that's a joke.
Yeah, it's a joke. But what's most embarrassing is just how out of touch these bureaucrats are and the hypocrisy of the bureaucracy. I mean, I think I say this almost every live stream and in so many of my reports. They're just showing how out of touch they are with what Canadians are experiencing on the ground in their real life. Canadians are fed up with the CBC. They call it for what it is. Yep. They see it for what it is. And Pierre Poilievre is also doing the same. And I think in doing so, he's trying to save, as you mentioned, the billions in taxpayer funding. So,
and Tamara, if I may add one thing, I think if there was a Batman universe villain I would compare to Jagmeet Singh, it would be Two-Face, Harvey Dent, because for the last couple of days, he has been savagely attacking Justin Trudeau. And that's the Two-Face part. At a press conference in question period, there's all this bluster. But when it comes to voting against blackface, nope, he is like a little lapdog, two-faced all the way. It's just, I mean, if you really believe that blackface is as despicable as you portray him in your press conferences, well, deeds speak. Vote against this government, but no, you gotta rag the puck till 2025, don't you, Jugmeat? So your pension kicks in after 6 years. Because as much as you like to complain about grocery store executives getting rich, we know you like the Armani suits, the Rolex watch, the BMW M3. Give me a break.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's go to a quick ad break, and we'll come back to more party hypocrisy, claiming to uphold freedom of the press and simultaneously kicking out independent journalists.
My mug? I know. It's pretty cool. So is this hoodie I got on, and you could have it on too if you check out our special website at rebelnewsstore.com. That's where you can see Freedom Focus hoodies that we have for you, beanies, cell phone cases, you name it, all while supporting our journalism, where we fight to bring you the other side of the story, as opposed to, being forced by the Trudeau government to fund leftist media out of your taxes. The truth is, without you and your generosity, there is no Rebel News. So again, if you like the reports that we bring you and that we also fight for freedoms in Canada, please consider doing some shopping, picking up some swag at rebelnewsstore.com. We appreciate your support.
So just yesterday, one of our Rebel reporters, Alex Dhaliwal, was kicked out of an NDP press conference, arguably by NDP leader, this is in Alberta, Rachel Notley. And so we have some footage here to share with you of him being kicked out and removed by these security guards. And also Cian Bexty from the Counter Signal was there receiving the same treatment. So maybe we can just throw to a couple of these short clips to show you what happened.
President rented the space?
Yeah. But what kind of message does that send if the official opposition is telling Albertans which media can and can't ask questions?
I can't speak to that.
I understand. You're just doing your job. I can understand that. But I just came here to ask questions respectfully of the members opposite. I'm not here to start trouble.
Yeah.
Neither is the gentleman that you were speaking to earlier. So, I mean, what's the harm in asking questions?
I understand that. Again, this area is what they've booked.
Yeah.
So I can't really.
Yeah. And who specifically said that certain members of the press can't come?
I couldn't say that.
Couldn't say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate.
I'm not going to arrest you, but I will escort you off. Okay? Just take it. We'll go this way. Okay? You don't need to put your hands behind your back. Okay.
This is Alberta. This is what Rachel Notley would do.
And this comes I believe it's just a day after the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, put a policy in place where media are only allowed to ask her one question and one follow-up. And I mean, I can understand that for being efficient in the name of expediency during press conferences, being peppered with 3-4 questions per journalist. It can really take up a lot of time. And if you have solid, pointed questions, I mean, you should really only need one question and one follow-up, especially if the mainstream media is doing their job and asking tough, pertinent, pointed questions. And so hopefully we will continue to see that, and then you only really need one question and one follow-up. But the NDP condemned Smith for instituting this policy, and I think we have a clip there of Notley condemning her of that we can share with you. And then lo and behold, the following day, or maybe it was a couple days later.
It's the Western Standard. This is a good one. Yep.
Oh, from the Western Standard.
Yep.
Okay, sure. Let's go ahead and play this one.
Thank you for your saying that you would take questions and follow-up questions. I'm going to take that as your affirmation of openness and transparency when you're dealing with the media. So I do have to ask, the Western Standard news site and our Edmonton reporter, being fully accredited members of the press gallery, why has your party cut us off from receiving the NDP press releases and media advisories?
Well, sir, I very much appreciate the question, and I do appreciate you being here, and thank you very much for the birthday greetings. However, as much as we have in the past taken questions from your bosses, your institution, unfortunately, your publication recently has been engaging in very active homophobic, discriminatory, hateful editorial positioning as it relates to some of our caucus members. And until such time as that is retracted and an apology offered, we will not be answering questions. Happy to reconsider that issue should a retraction and apology be offered. But between now and then, I simply cannot engage in any sort of normalization of that kind of conversation. It is a breach of our human rights code. It's a breach of our charter. It's a breach of basic standards. And so I look forward to hearing from your editors in the future.
Well, Madam,
happy to take other questions.
Let's dispute your interpretation of our editorial policy. We're not homophobic. We're libertarian.
Oh, the chutzpah, the sheer unmitigated gall, Tamara. I mean, and you know what, Rachel Notley, maybe we can play that game too. Alex Dhaliwal is Muslim, so when you had him frog marched out of your most recent press conference, I guess, was that an example of Islamophobia? I mean, this is outrageous. What the hell is she talking about?
Well, and we've reinvigorated the website notleyisabully.ca, and so we'll have some reports to follow there. Also recapping the way that our editor, chief editor, Sheila Gunn-Reid, was previously treated on the legislature grounds by Notley, and further detailing some of the hypocrisy, again, of the bureaucracy in how these people conduct themselves. They'll answer questions from the mainstream, and if you limit the questions from the mainstream, then you need to be condemned and you must retract your position and offer an apology. But if you frog march and kick out independent journalists because they might ask you a prickly question, well, that's okay because it goes with the narrative. So again, this hypocrisy, we're going to continue to point it out, and we will be we have reinvigorated the website notleyisabully.ca, where you can stay tuned to view our most recent, or our reports that will be coming out on the topic.
What a censorious thug. Unbelievable. And, you know, we should get to Tamara, because this is going to affect all Canadians, really. As of 9 p.m. tonight, I believe, the public sector, the federal ones, those unions are in a strike position. I mean, they're only asking for 4.5% annually over 3 years. Yeah, that's more than 13%. And, the government, I think, is offering 9% over 3 years, which is in itself more than generous, I should think. And they can afford to be generous because it's hard money. But in addition to that, they don't want any more services being contracted out. That means they want to get overtime. And you know what I found the most unbelievable line in the union's demands, Tamara, was they are demanding that their members receive more anti-racist training. Is the public sector full of racists? I mean, are they all, discriminatory towards people that look different than they are, that worship differently than they are? I mean, why are they so hell-bent on more? Not just anti-racist training. It sounds like they already get it, but they want more. What's going on there?
You know what? I think that if we cut all of this diversity, equity, and inclusion training that has seemed seems to have infiltrated all levels of government and all of our institutions. I think we could save in the billions on these advisors and this sort of nonsense training. I mean, really, this needs to be scrutinized, because what in God's name does anti-racism training have to do with someone from the Canada Revenue Agency going through your tax return?
You know what? Thank you for educating me, Tamara, because of course, you're right. These anti-racist trainers, of course, are woke virtue signaling Marxists, and they're friends of the union poobahs, and they make big money going into classrooms and telling everybody how awful they are and how they must change. So I think that's the idea, because, folks, 'twas ever thus. The first rule of a bureaucracy is grow the bureaucracy. So in addition to having consultants and whatnot, now we need anti-racism trainers, as if, when you go to a CRA office, as if there's a burning cross in the parking lot or something. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, and well, this comes at a time too that Justin Trudeau, I think, what did he receive, like $10,000 raise this year? I mean, he's
15, I think, isn't it?
Well, regardless,
Yep.
tens of thousands of dollars all the MPs and the MPPs receive on, and it's not an April Fool's Day joke, on April 1st every year. And so these public servant bureaucrats are just trying to get their fair share of the taxpayer pie.
You know what? Speaking of anti-racist trainers, when it comes to Trudeau, doesn't he need a little lecture about, putting blackface on more times than he can think of? Oh, no. He won't be attending that class. Blackface is special. He knows better. It's a lesson for all of us to endure, not the perpetrator of the blackface himself, Justin Trudeau. It's just amazing, Tamara.
Truly is. We have a super chat from the last segment that we were talking about, the CBC. Wonder Woman Wells gives us $5. Thank you. The fact that there are still people who consume mainstream Canadian news baffles me. How are there still so many stupid people that believe any of the nonsense they spew? Government lackeys.
This obviously Wonder Woman Wells is engaged. And this is my biggest fear in terms of whenever the next election is. Could be this year. I don't think it will be. Likely 2024, but at least by 2025, the number of people, Tamara, that are just not engaged. I mean, we can go to Yonge Dundas Square, as we did when Andrew Scheer became the Conservative leader, and this was surreal. On the Jumbotron at Yonge Dundas Square, there was Andrew Scheer's face and name printed out, and we were asking people, and it wasn't a trick thing, we weren't using a dark photo or anything, it was his official photo from the Conservative Party. Who is this man? And I think maybe 5% of all respondents got it. Oh, that's Andrew Scheer. In fact, the most embarrassing response was a young lady, and she was, I know who that is. It's on the tip of my tongue. He's the guy that killed those schoolgirls. She was thinking of Paul Bernardo. Holy mackerel! But the thing is, I bet you if we go to Yonge Dundas Square and we said, "Hey, have you seen Kim Kardashian's new bikini?" Oh, they'll talk chapter and verse until the cows come home, Tamara. So this is paining me of how many people are disengaged, because these people in government are affecting our daily lives on a daily basis.
And that goes to show you the failures of the media.
Correct.
And the failures of our education system, both publicly funded institutions that we have no choice but to pay into. Well, here in Ontario, it differs across the province in terms of the education system. In places like Alberta, they do have school choice. But here in Ontario, you have no choice. You must fund the public school system, and even if you don't want to partake in that system because it's becoming increasingly woke and failing children in their actual academics, well, that's too bad. You still have to pay for it, and then you'll have to pay out of pocket if you want to go and seek any sort of private schooling. So yeah, this is an inept failure of all of our institutions at adequately educating and engaging the public in matters of great public interest. So for anyone who thinks, the mainstream media, they're credible, impartial, well, the proof is in the pudding. Our public is completely uneducated.
100%. I mean, you are echoing what my beloved Lady Menzoid says on an almost daily basis, that if you look at all the scandals, and I'm forgetting some, but off the top of my cuff, SNC Lavalin, Jody Wilson-Raybould, the We Charity, the Trudeau Foundation, Chinese collusion, Chinese police stations operating in Canada, blackface, groping Rose Knight. If the media were doing its job, the Trudeau Liberals would have been done in 2019 and then 2021, but they're still here. They are not doing their job. If the Stephen Harper Conservatives were at the helm for any one of those scandals, it would be front page news every day. That's how bought and paid for the mainstream media is in this country.
Precisely. We have another chat here from Miss D. Old A's. My sentiments exactly. Gives $5. Maybe our PM thinks everyone needs racism sensitivity training because Canadians have voted for a blackface, banana pants PM 3 times.
Yeah,
Sad.
It's so true, Tamara. It's not just the blackface, but it's the inclusion of a banana. I mean, we're talking about, how many racist tropes are there? But the thing that bugs me the most, and I've said this before, whenever you see him in blackface, he's always sticking out his tongue.
Yes.
Is this what the Prime Minister, does he think that black people go about their days like dogs? Like they've got a tongue sticking out of their mouth? I think that's even more offensive than the blackface. Look at that. What is this? And he's even blackened his arms and his legs,
That clip is truly the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
It's
that one and the admiration of China's basic dictatorship.
Yeah.
It really keeps on giving.
But how did the media react in 2019 when Time Magazine exposed that? They went after Time Magazine. They went after the guy who leaked the picture. Why did you do that? As opposed to saying to the Prime Minister, why did you do that?
Well, same that they're doing with the Chinese interference allegations. They're going after the reporter who leaked the whistleblower's claims instead of independently investigating and having a fully public inquiry into that allegation under the guise of compromising national security, as though having China meddle in our democracy doesn't undermine our national security.
Oh, but Tamara, I think you doth protest too much. I mean, Blackface has appointed a special rapporteur. By the way, that's just a fancy name for an advisor. Happens to be a family friend and someone who was connected with the Trudeau Foundation. That's David Johnston. Same David Johnston in 2019 and 2021 that was an agreement to keep us out of the parliamentary debates until we got a federal court order getting us back. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure Johnson is going to call it fair and square when it comes to his investigation of Han Dong. How do you like that, folks? A Johnson investigating a dong. Can I get a drum roll for that, please?
The jokes write themselves. But the next topic that we're going to discuss is about the climate alarmism and the 15-minute neighborhoods that they're being called. But I want to refer to some words that we can't talk about on YouTube. I know, it's bizarre. So we're going to go to a really quick ad break because we're running out of time here, but we'll go to a quick ad break, and when you join us back, we will no longer be live stream on YouTube. So head on over to Rumble, Odyssey, Getter, or Twitter. You can find the last 10 minutes or so of the live stream there, because we're going to disavow YouTube at this point and come back and talk about some climate alarmism.
If you want to look good and shine like me, you can do so at our store. Go to ribbonnewsstore.com. On this website, you have so much different style to wear, as this one, my favorite one, Justin Castro. With my code Alexa10, you will have 10% off on your next purchase. So don't hesitate, go now and look so good like me.
All right, we have the City of Ottawa